Welcome to my channel. Think happy, be happy.
The Magic Faraway Tree. Chapter 3. The Land of Topsy-Turvy. What is Topsy-Turvy Land like? Asked Joe, taking another pop cake. We've been there, said Moonface. But I should think it's quite safe, really. It's only just come there, so it should stay for a while. We could go up and see what it's like and come down again if we don't like it. Silky, Saucepan and I will come with you, if you like. Moonface turned to the Saucepan Man, who was enjoying his fifth pop cake. Saucepan, we're going up the ladder, he said. Are you coming? Humming, said Saucepan, looking all round as if he thought there might be bees about. No, I didn't hear any humming. I said, are you coming? Said Moonface. Oh, coming, said Saucepan. Of course I'm coming. Are we going to take our lunch? Yes, said Moonface, going to a curved door that opened onto a tiny cupboard. I'll see what I've got. Tomatoes, plums, ginger snaps, lemonade. I'll bring them all. He put them into a basket. Then they all went out of the funny, curved room onto the big branch outside. Moonface shut his door. Joe led the way up to the very top of the faraway tree. Then suddenly Rick gave a shout of astonishment. Look, he cried. There's an enormous white cloud above and around us. Isn't it mysterious? Sure enough, a huge white cloud floated above them, but just nearby was a hole right through the cloud. That's where we go, up that hole, said Joe. See that branch that goes up the hole? Come on. They all went up the last and topmost branch of the faraway tree. It went up, and up through the purple hole in the cloud. At the very end of the branch was a little ladder. Joe climbed the ladder, and suddenly his head poked out into the land of Topsy-Turvy. Then one by one all the others followed, and soon all 7 of them stood in the curious land. Rick was not as used to strange lands as the others were. He stood and stared, with his eyes so wide open that it really seemed as if they were going to drop out of his head. And, indeed, it was a strange sight he saw. Every house was upside down, and stood on its chimneys. The trees were upside down, their heads buried in the ground and their roots in the air. And the people walked upside down, too. They are walking on their hands, with their legs in the air. Said Joe. Goodness, what a peculiar thing to do. Everyone stared at the folk of Topsy-Turvy Land. They got along very quickly on their hands, and often stopped to talk to one another, chattering busily. Some of them had been shopping, and carried their baskets on one foot. Let's go and peep inside a house and see what it's like, all topsy-turvy, said Joe. So they set off to the nearest house. It looked really peculiar standing on its chimneys. No smoke came out of them, but smoke came out of a window near the top. How do we get in? Said Beth. They watched a topsy-turvy man walk on his hands to another house. He jumped in at the nearest window, going up a ladder first. The children looked for the ladder that entered the house they were near. They soon found it. They went up it to a window and peeped inside. Gosh, said Joe, everything really is upside down in it, the chairs and tables, and everything. How uncomfortable it must be. An old lady was inside the house. She was sitting upside down in an upside-down chair and looked very uncomfortable. She was angry when she saw the children peeping in. She clapped her hands, and a tall man, walking on his hands, came running in. From the next room. Send those rude children away, shouted the old woman. The tall man hurried to the window on his hands, and the children quickly slid down the ladder, because the man looked rather fierce. It's a silly land, I think, said Joe. I vote we just have our lunch and then leave this place. I wonder why everything is topsy-turvy. Oh, a spell was put on everything and everybody, said Moonface, and in an instant everything was topsy-turvy. Look, wouldn't that be a good place to sit and eat our lunch? It was under a big oak tree whose roots stood high in the air. Joe and Moonface set out the lunch. It looked very good. There's plenty for everybody, said Joe. Have a sandwich, Silky. Saucepan. Have a plum. Crumb, said Saucepan, in surprise. Is that all you can spare for me, a crumb? Plum, 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 said Moonface, pushing a ripe one into the Saucepan man's hands. Oh, plum, said Saucepan. Well, why didn't you say so? Everybody giggled. They all tucked into a good lunch. In the middle of it, Joe happened to look round, and he saw something surprising. It was a policeman coming, walking on his hands, of course. Look what's coming, said Joe with a laugh. Everyone looked. Moonface went pale. I don't like the look of him, he said. Suppose he's come to lock us up for something. We couldn't get away down the Faraway tree before this land swung away from the top. The policeman came right up to the little crowd under the tree. Why aren't you topsy-turvy? He asked in a stern voice. Don't you know that the rule in this land is that everything and everyone has to be upside down? Yes, but we don't belong to this silly land, said Joe. And if you were sensible, you'd make another rule, saying that everybody must be the right way up. You've just no idea how silly you look, policeman, walking on your hands. The policeman went red with anger. He took a sort of wand from his belt and tapped Joe on the head with it. Topsy-turvy, he said. Topsy-turvy. And to Joe's horror he had to turn himself upside down at once. The others stared at poor Joe, standing on his hands, his legs in the air. Oh, fiddlesticks, cried Joe. I can't eat anything properly now because I need my hands to walk with. Policeman, put me right again. You are right now, said the policeman, and walked solemnly away on his hands. Put Joe the right way up, said Rick. So everyone tried to turn him over so that he was the right way up again. But as soon as they got his legs down and his head up, he turned topsy-turvy again. He just couldn't help it, because he was under a spell. A group of topsy-turvy people came to watch. They laughed loudly. Now he belongs to topsy-turvy land. They cried. He'll have to stay here with us. Never mind, young man, you'll soon get used to it. Take me back to the faraway tree, begged Joe, afraid that he really and truly might be made to stay in this peculiar land. Hurry! Everyone jumped to their feet. They helped Joe along to where the hole ran down through the cloud. He wasn't used to walking on his hands and he kept falling over. They tried their best to make him stand upright, but he couldn't. The spell wouldn't let him. It will be difficult to get him down through the hole, said Rick. Look, there it is. I'd better go down first and see if I can help him. You others push him through. As carefully as you can. He'll have to go upside down, I'm afraid. It was very difficult to get Joe through the hole, because his hands and head had to go first. Moonface held his legs to guide him. Rick held his shoulders as he came down the ladder, so that he wouldn't fall. At last all 7 of them were through the hole in the clouds, and were on the broad branch outside Moonface's house. Joe held onto the branch with his hands, his legs were in the air. Moonface. Silky. Can't you possibly take this spell away? He groaned. It's dreadful. Silky, what land is coming to the top of the faraway tree next? Asked Moonface. Have you heard? I think it's the land of spells, said Silky. It should come tomorrow. But I'm not really sure. Oh, well, if it's the land of spells, we could easily get a spell from there to put Joe right, said Moonface, beaming. Joe, you must stay the night with me and wait for the land of spells tomorrow. The others can go home and tell what has happened. All right, said Joe. I can't possibly climb up the tree again if I'm upside down. So I'll just have to wait here. Mother will never believe it, though, when the others tell her why I don't go home. Still, it can't be helped. They all went into Moonface's house. Joe stood on a chair, upside down. The others sat about and talked. Rick was sorry for Joe, but he couldn't help feeling a bit excited. Goodness, if this was the sort of adventure that Joe, Beth and Franny had, what fun things were going to be. The others began telling him all the adventures they had had. Silky made some hot chocolate, and went down the tree to fetch some more pop cakes. When it was 5:30, Beth said they must go. Goodbye, Joe, she said. Don't be too unhappy. Pretend you are a bat. They always sleep upside down, you know, and don't mind a bit. Come on, Rick, we're going down the slippery slip. Rick was excited. He took the red cushion that Moonface gave him and sat himself at the top of the slide. Beth gave him a push. And off he went, round and round the inside of the enormous Faraway tree, sitting safely on his cushion. What a way to get down a tree.
Please subscribe my channel and encourage me to upload more videos.
Like, comment, share, subscribe and press the bell icon and never miss another update.